Welcome to Cryptid Robot. My name is Andrew J. Robinson. This is my channel, and today we are going to be talking about Kong versus Godzilla. Alright, so we know that Legendary is making a Kong vs. Godzilla movie. The idea of this video is to maybe give Legendary some free ideas. If you haven't guessed it yet, this video will contain spoilers for both Kong Skull Island as well as Godzilla. If you haven't seen either of those movies, I've got links down in the description for both of them, so I do recommend checking them out. The big thing that these movies share is the back history. Kong and Godzilla are both giant monsters who come from below ground. Back in the old days, I guess giant monsters ruled over the world. They all went into hiding underground, I guess because the world got unsafe for them because of the atmosphere and stuff. Now, giant monsters are starting to come back up. So in Kong Skull Island, we are introduced to Monarch, the organization by the US military that is tracking these giant monsters. Really, the entire point of that movie is to prove that they exist, which they undoubtedly do, though they remain secret. And then in Godzilla, they then have giant monsters that are actually out in the world, so they're no longer a secret at this point. So now that both of these giant monsters have been introduced, Kong and Godzilla, the obvious desire of the audience is for them to fight. The big question, though, is why do they fight and how do they fight? So I have written up a pitch for how I would like this movie to go. The most important thing for me is that they have a reason to fight. Not just that they wander up beside each other and start duking it out, but they actually have some sort of emotional reason for doing so. Also in the movie, you do have to have humans that we care about. I've got Jason, who is like a worker for Monarch, who would be, sort of an engineer or a scientist. It doesn't super matter what he is, but he can fly a helicopter, and that's what's the most important part for his character for this fake movie that I made up. And then the other character's name is Lua. So if you're a big, huge Kong fan, you may have watched the animated series back in the day. I'll be honest with you, I have never seen it in my life, but I was trying to come up with character names for this, and it seemed like a good idea to use these ones because they're kind of sort of close enough. All right, so let's just talk about how this movie would open. We're going to start over in China, and China is being attacked by a big giant monster. Now, I do think that it should be a recognizable one to like super fans, so I'm thinking maybe like a giant squid monster. There's one named either Gezura or Gezora. Gezra, I don't know. I didn't see the movie, but I know that it is a fairly obscure old-timey monster. So let's go with that one, okay? This thing is coming up out of the ocean in China and it's attacking this city, and then Godzilla shows up. Now, Godzilla was introduced in his movie as being sort of the great balancer of nature. Whenever stuff starts to get out of whack, that's when Godzilla comes up to fix it. Godzilla naturally is drawn to this battle with this giant sea monster destroying the city. So he comes in, he dukes it out with the big squid monster, and naturally Godzilla is our hero. So he wins and he kills Gezra, and then he does his big roar. And then he walks into the ocean a victor. But what we find out is that Godzilla was hurt a little bit by this giant monster, and he left a couple of scales behind because he was actually scratched by the tentacles of this Gezra. We see this American general who's actually watching Godzilla walk away. He was there for the battle, and he does this weird little smirk thing. And then you get the opening, Kong versus Godzilla. So then we go from China over to Skull Island. Now, after the movie Kong Skull Island, they just kind of left. I'm going to say that Monarch wouldn't just leave a giant island of giant monsters sitting there. They would set up some sort of a research post. Now, there was a tribe on this island in the movie who was very nice. They didn't really talk at all, I don't think, but they did sort of tolerate the people that were there. They just kind of had this mutual understanding of, you guys do whatever you're doing and we'll sit here in our cool temples and, survive and stuff, and Kong will protect us. That's Kong's role in the movies. He is a protector of people. So Godzilla is our balancer, Kong is a protector. There's a very distinct difference between the two. In the time after Kong Skull Island, it's been about 40 years by now, the Monarch organization has set up like a research post that stays there. And that's where Jason is working. Lua is actually one of the tribe's people. She has learned English. She talks with the Americans who are set up at Monarch, and she also goes back and forth between her tribe's people and them. She's a big fan of all their cool technology and stuff, but she loves her tribe, all that good stuff. She's really good friends with Jason and has always wanted him to actually come and meet Kong. The islanders have like this really good relationship with Kong. They can walk around him. He doesn't smash them. He just kind of sees them and takes care of them and protects them because that's his thing. Jason doesn't really want to meet Kong. He likes keeping his distance. He's that kind of person. But she still is always trying to get him to meet this big creature. So what could happen with our inciting incident is that Jason is actually ordered by the colonel that we saw at the start of the movie to distract Kong. This colonel, I'm going to call him Colonel Clark because that's a name and that's the one we're going to go with. Colonel Clark orders him to distract Kong. Jason finally agrees to go with Lua to meet Kong. So they go up on top of this mountain. He probably comments on how much Godzilla has grown since Monarch has been there. It's pretty important because back in Kong, he was only about 100 feet tall. Godzilla is 300 feet tall, so that wouldn't be very fair. So I'm going to say that he has grown to at least 200 feet by this point. She takes him up on top of this mountain. Kong comes up to the mountain and he allows her to put her hand on his face. He allows Jason to put his hand on his face, which is the same thing that we saw back in Kong Skull Island with those people. And as they're doing that, there is actually this tank that rolls up out of the jungle way back behind him. And it fires this big missile thing that hits into Kong's head and drills in. It's like this really high-tech driller missile thing. And he turns and he sees the tank and he starts running towards it. And he's gonna smash it. But then he stops because the military has implanted a controlling sort of a chip into Kong's mind. Don't let me lose you there. If you're thinking that this movie is just going to be, oh, well, Kong's under mind control. Okay, so he is right now, but bear with me for now. I think I've got some neat ideas. So naturally, Lua now hates Jason's guts, which is fair. Jason assumes that she does so, and he is ordered to travel with Kong. Kong is being sent elsewhere now that he's under the military's control. So Jason hops into his helicopter, and he's supposed to just kind of follow along and continue his research and making sure that Kong is not going to get out of control. Lua hops on board the helicopter because she absolutely loves Kong and she thinks this is wrong. Kong is then sent to attack another country, actually. So Uncle Sam gets in charge, and Uncle Sam wants to use Kong as a weapon in secret. So I'm going to say that he attacks North Korea. I don't want for this to get too political because I'm not really a big fan of that in all of my movies and stuff. But I do think that the biggest Godzilla movies, the best ones, actually do address some level of politics. We're just going to say it's North Korea. North Korea, if you're watching, I guess sorry. I mean, it's whatever. Kong is attacking North Korea, right? He's smashing all the buildings. The military's trying to shoot at him, and he's just wiping them out left and right, and he doesn't care. He's just doing his thing. And then what happens when giant monsters are smashing cities and stuff? Godzilla gets mad. Godzilla comes marching up and they fight. Okay, so this is our first fight between the monsters. Godzilla is roaring and punching and tail swiping, and King Kong is grabbing his tail and biting it and fighting dirty, and they're just duking it out. It's pretty clear that Godzilla is gonna win this fight though. So Kong is ordered to retreat and he books it out of there. Godzilla chases him down to South Korea, where the military's waiting on him already. They set up this big elaborate ambush, so they ambush Godzilla. I think they actually send like a helicopter guy out to land on his back and implant his head with one of those chips. In fact, we could even have Jason be flying the helicopter that delivers the person. And so now you've got Kong and Godzilla both under the government's control. Dun, dun, dun. That's bad. So both of the monsters are kind of ordered to leave. Now, we've got another scene here where Jason is talking to Lua about how he doesn't understand how the government was actually able to even implant this thing into Godzilla's head. This monster has survived nuclear blasts before. How did that drill even manage to work? And they discover that Colonel Clark actually was using a special sort of a weapon on Godzilla. So this drill that they used to spin into the back of his head was embedded with these little spikes, these big spikes. And these spikes are actually from Gezora. They were on his tentacles. The government like kind of chopped them off and fit them onto this thing because they knew it was able to penetrate Godzilla's skin. But it's even deeper than that. Gezora wasn't just randomly attacking China. That's why the military guy was there. He had already taken over Gezora with a different sort of a drill in order to take charge. So he was using Gezora to lure Godzilla in so that he could then take over Godzilla by using the drill thing. It was a complicated plan, but bad guys have complicated plans all the time. It's fine. So now he's got both of them. Colonel Clark knows that Jason and Lua found out his evil secret plan of trying to take over all the monsters in the world. So they're chased out of the military base. They hop in his chopper and they fly away. Colonel Clark don't even care. He ain't going to chase him down right now. He has bigger fish to fry in the form of giant monsters that are his. So he orders those two giant monsters to go out and wreak more havoc. I'm going to say that Kong and Godzilla are both sent together to Russia to wreak some havoc out there, but their actual goal while they're there is Mothra. Now, why would I go dragging Mothra into this? Well, we know that Mothra is going to be in the next Godzilla movie, Godzilla King of the Monsters. It's got Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah. Ghidorah's probably going to die. Mothra will be fine. Rodan will be fine too, but he's not going to make it into my movie because I don't have enough ideas for him to be in the movie. And so I'm thinking that Colonel Clark just really doesn't like Mothra. He doesn't like other monsters. He's wanting to wipe out all the other militaries in the world and also wipe out all the big monsters, especially the ones that could challenge his authority. And Mothra is one of those because Mothra is a good guy. So Kong and Godzilla both find Mothra's nest. There are two big eggs that are sitting there, and so they get to work trying to destroy them. Both of the eggs hatch at that time because movies are convenient with timing, and Mothra is like, oh no, you can't be hurting my babies, and so she's trying to protect them, but Kong and Godzilla manage to like kill one of the larvae that pops out, and they smash it and pummel it, and it's violent, and you feel sad, and then Mothra just grabs the other larva and flies away. Possibly during the fighting, we learn that Kong is super powered when he touches electricity. That's kind of dumb, but it is what happened in the other Kong vs. Godzilla movie from the 60s. So I think it would be kind of neat if we played that up to show that Kong can get really strong as we're going, because obviously Godzilla's stronger. But if Kong has these powers too, or is at least supercharged, then he has a little bit better of a chance. After beating up Mothra's poor defenseless baby and destroying most of Moscow, Kong and Godzilla are then sent back to an American base to rest. While they're sleeping, Jason and Lua break into the base, and they want to set these monsters free because what they're doing is wrong. They discover where they're hiding, and I don't know, they're really sneaky. I don't know how they got in there. It's fine. So Lua wants to save Kong first, naturally, because he is the protector of her island. So she goes up on the scaffolding and stuff and gets the thing and somehow manages to get it out of Kong's head. It's electronic, so whatever. There's some way that she can do that. She gets it out. Kong wakes up. He sees Jason down on the floor, and he remembers that Jason was touching his face when he got shot in the back of the head. So he thinks Jason was involved, which he was, but he gets really mad about it. And so he comes ready to smash him, and Jason is like running through the halls, and Kong is trying to destroy him, and the only reason he hasn't already is the hall he's going down is a little hall, and so Kong is having to rip the building apart to try to get to him. And Lua runs in front, and she's like, oh, you can't hurt Jason. Jason's here to help you. And so she runs in front and like throws herself in the way of Kong's big old fist that was coming to smash Jason. And Kong sees that she is doing this sacrifice, and he doesn't punch him because he sees what's going on here, and Kong is really smart like that. And then Colonel Clark is coming too. He and his soldiers hear that this is going on, so they're running down the halls. Kong is like, I ain't messing with this anymore. I'm going home to Skull Island. So he offers his hand, he holds it out, and Lua climbs on up so that she can go with him. And Kong continues holding his hand out so that Jason can get on board too. And Jason is like, you know what? I'm going to stay here. I'm going to slow Colonel Clark down so that y'all can escape. And Kong is just kind of looking at him, and he sees that he ain't coming. So he's like, Okay. And so he breaks out of the building, and Jason goes to slow down Colonel Clark, and he manages to slow him down long enough for Kong to escape with Lua. Godzilla is then awoken and sent after Kong because they have got to stop him from escaping. Jason, meanwhile, he's handcuffed up and he is sent to go off and, I don't know, go to jail or something. But he's real sneaky throughout this entire movie and is good at whatever he's doing because it's a movie. So he manages to escape and he steals a helicopter and he flies out of there on his own. Colonel Clark, he still doesn't really care about Jason. He's like, you know what? That guy can go do his own thing. I do not care. Godzilla, you go get Kong. Kong just wants to get home, but he doesn't know where Skull Island is. It's a big old planet that we're on, so he is carrying Lua, and they're running, and so they leave Russia and they're swimming, and they swim all the way to Japan. And this is obviously not Skull Island, but Kong is looking around just trying to figure out where he is at. He ends up in Tokyo, and then he turns, and Godzilla is here with the military right behind him. Big old American military, probably some Japanese military too, because I'm assuming that we're going to buddy up to try and stop this monster. We got a bunch of tanks around. We got a bunch of helicopters around. So Kong takes Lua, he sits her aside on top of a building where she'll be kind of safe-ish, and then he just goes a-running. And so Godzilla and Kong are doing this big fight. Godzilla is still controlled by the military, of course. Kong is fighting for his life. It's a big, huge, epic battle. Kong keeps like electrocuting himself on purpose so that he can get stronger and try and stand a chance, but it's just not working. It's obvious that Godzilla is bigger and stronger and has fire breath, and so Kong is just not going to make it. But that's when we see, over the horizon, a helicopter. Jason is flying in on his chopper, and not only is he flying here to just come save the day, but he has this big old net that has got Mothra's larva baby thing inside it. And what's behind them? Mothra. Mothra is chasing him down, trying to get the baby back. I don't really know how he managed to catch the big larva thing, but we're going to say that's a deleted scene. He's flying in. He's brought Mothra as like a backup to try and help out Kong. The military people turn and they see that he's coming in, so they shoot an RPG or a tank, and it hits the helicopter, and he goes crash landing down on top of a building somewhere. The larva baby is dropped, and then Mothra comes in. Godzilla is then ordered to try and take out all of them. So now we've got this huge, different dynamic in the fight. The tables have turned. Kong is fighting, Mothra is fighting Godzilla, and even the larva is fighting Godzilla. Now these larvas, if you don't know, if you haven't seen the old Godzilla movies, Mothra baby things are able to shoot this giant silk webbing stuff. So as this battle is going on, Godzilla starts to get tied up, so he does his fire breath and actually blasts Mothra and kills Mothra, which I know is really sad. I'm sad about it, but I think we need some emotional weight here. The little baby sees it, and the baby's like, no! And so the baby thing shoots all of this super webbing stuff, ties Godzilla down. King Kong jumps on top and starts punching, and he rips that thing out of Godzilla's head, that control chip, and Godzilla stops attacking. And then Kong actually lets Godzilla like sniff this thing that was controlling his brain, and Godzilla is able to smell like humanity's taint on it. And so he stands up. He realizes that he has been under this control and everything is okay now. Now Lua has managed to make it from the building where she was on all the way over to the building where Jason is. So she is with him. Together they watched this battle, and Kong and Godzilla are finally both free from this mind control stuff that's been going on. Godzilla then turns to look at all of the helicopters and the tanks and stuff that are out there, and he lets loose. His fire glows. He starts blasting atomic breath at everything. Godzilla is mad. He starts destroying buildings and stomping stuff up. Now, if you think this doesn't match his character, the way that he was portrayed in his other movie, you have to remember Godzilla is the balancer. He is supposed to balance the world. That is his nature. Humans have upset that balance by developing this technology that can actually control the giant monsters. And Godzilla is very upset about this. So he is destroying everything. Kong, his role his primary motivation is of the defender of people. So he can't let Godzilla do this. He starts fighting to protect everything around him. The two are engaged in this super epic struggle full of punches and roars and awesome action and stuff. Little baby Mothra larva thing sees what's going on, and it's like, I'm just a baby, so I'm going to leave. So the baby leaves from that point, and we kind of forget that he's in the movie. And so while Godzilla is destroying all of these buildings and things, he sees Colonel Clark and wipes him out. That is the justice that Colonel Clark deserved in this particular instance for controlling monsters. So he kills him, and he is killing everybody that he can. Then Godzilla sees Jason's helicopter. He doesn't really care whose helicopter that is. He is just mad that it exists. So he starts charging up to shoot his fire breath right at that thing. Lua is like trying to drag Jason away, but there's no way she's going to be able to get out of here. Kong sees it, and he runs, and he jumps in front of the fire blast right as it's coming. And he protects them and saves Jason and Lua from this explosive blast. And that is just like what Lua did for Jason earlier in the movie. Kong learned a lesson from her about self-sacrifice. So Kong is taking this shot. Godzilla is just mad, and he keeps on breathing the fire, and he throws a punch, and Kong just keeps on climbing up to protect these people. And Godzilla is just shooting his fire breath, and then he finally just stops. And he realizes at that moment, you can see in his eyes, that he knows what he is doing is wrong. And so Godzilla lets out his roar. He does his but a little better. And so he just turns and he walks into the sea. The buildings are burning behind him. The sirens are wailing, and Godzilla is done. He walks off, but he has made his point that you do not mess with Godzilla. Kong, he is injured. He's smoking. His back's probably on fire a little bit, but he's okay. And he decides that he's just going to go ahead and go. So he does one last nod to Lua and Jason. He probably even comes up and lets them touch his face again, just like they did earlier in the movie. And then he turns his back and he jumps away in search of Skull Island. Jason and Lua then, walk. They do the hobble walk on out of there. Lua is probably dragging him because he's really hurt. And the credits roll. Now, halfway through the credits, we see that Mothra's larva baby is actually hidden somewhere in Japan and is setting up a cocoon because it's going to grow up to be another Mothra. So we're going to get a new Mothra. Yay! All the way after the credits, we see this scientist in a lab, and he has scales of Godzilla from the battle, and he has big tufts of fur from Kong, and we learn that he is developing Kongzilla. So anyway, those are my ideas for how you could make a Kong versus Godzilla movie that would actually work. I know mind control is not like the most creative thing under the sun, but I think in this instance it could work because it gives them a legitimate reason to fight at the start, and then it gives Godzilla a legitimate reason to be angry at humanity, which then gives Godzilla and Kong legitimate reasons to fight each other because they're both good guys. But then we actually have a difference of opinion between these giant creatures other than, you're scaly, you're furry, let's fight. So I think this would be kind of a fun way to do it, and maybe introduce some humans that we'll be able to keep throughout the series from here on out because they would be kind of sort of fun. So if you like these ideas that I have presented, let me know in the comments. If you think these ideas that I presented are stupid and you have better ideas, let me know in the comments. Please subscribe to this channel. We'll be talking about other fiction-y things as we go along. Lots of stuff will be about my book that I wrote, but we'll also be talking about unique fiction and existing fictional ideas. And in general, we're just going to try and keep things fun around this channel. Stay adventuresome out there.